I'm here with documentary filmmaker Morgan Spurlock, who is most known for Super Size Me and Super Size Me 2, Holy Chicken.
Holy chicken.
So happy to be here with you.
Thanks, I'm excited to be here.
So tell me, how do you get the ideas for all your documentaries, and what are the first steps for actually making them and producing them?
Yeah, I think that I get inspiration and ideas for things all over. It could be an article I read in the newspaper, although now I read my newspaper on my tablet, my phone. Could be something I see on television. Could be a conversation I have with somebody where I was like, oh my gosh, that'd be such a good film or a good TV show. And then once we have that, I start kind of exploring, well, what would it actually take to make that idea? Because then you start going down the path of, well, how would you make it? What would the work be? How many people would I need? Do I actually have to raise a lot of money? And a lot of things fall off at that point. But once I'm kind of committed to making something, I've never been in a situation, knock on wood, where I've started something and had to quit. I've had filmmaker friends of mine have started filming projects and had to abandon them, in the middle of filming. And I've never had to do that. I feel very lucky, but it can happen. So I think for me, I try and do as much research before I get started, just so that doesn't happen.
Yeah, for me, I actually failed. I tried to do a documentary, and then I realized all the fundraising, the ideas, doing the interviews, it is so much work.
There's so much.
And what are some things that people don't know about creating a documentary? Because it sounds great. It sounds exciting, and they look at what you've done, they're like, that is a dream job.
And you watch a lot of people, I think, watch a movie like it's 2 hours long. Like, oh great, it's 2 hours. I can knock banging out like that. Not realizing that in a 2 hour or an hour and a half documentary, which I think is the sweet spot for a nonfiction film. I think 90 minutes is the perfect amount of time for a movie. What people don't realize is that it's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours that go into that movie. I mean, I think this one we shot 400 hours of footage, between 300 and 400, and it's just an immense amount of footage that then you have to start whittling down into your narrative arc. And so for me, I think that's the biggest one. I think the other is, it's easier not to do it by yourself. Can you make a movie 100% by yourself? You can. You can Trent Reznor that thing up and do it all solo, but it's a lot of work. It takes a lot of time and a lot of work to do it by yourself. I'm a real believer that you let people do what they do best, whether they're great DPs or great sound engineers or great editors. I think the other thing people don't realize is kind of what their own limitations are. And not that I think you should put a limitation on yourself, but the more you focus on one thing, the more prolific and better you'll be at that one thing, and the same for other people. So find somebody who's the best at those other things when you start something.
And you view yourself as a storyteller? When did you decide you wanted to be a storyteller, and how do you know that your stories were resonating and that you were effective at storytelling?
I think we realize we're storytellers when we're young. When you're 6, 7 years old and you're telling your friends of yours a story on the playground, and they're all listening and they're laughing and paying attention to what you're saying. I mean, I realized early on that all I wanted to do was make movies and TV shows and tell stories, and it was a gift to be able to realize that so early on. So I think that for me I was just enraptured in the media and the medium of the media since I was really, really young.
Yeah, and I think a lot of your films, like Super Size Me 2, they make a huge impact, that you have changed the food industry.
Yeah.
And so do you feel like you have a sense of purpose now, that it's not just about creating the movie and the series, but it's also about making a big impact? And what mark do you want to leave on the world?
Those are two great questions. I think that after I made the first Super Size Me, and I went from that right into making a TV series for FX called 30 Days, where I saw that you could actually make something that was entertaining, but at the same time, have a point of view, or at least, have a directive for people who are watching it to feel a certain way, or, to have a certain impact, culturally, or start a certain kind of conversation. So for me, I found that to be really rewarding, and I got a lot out of that personally and creatively. So that was kind of the path that I think I was on and I'm still on. How can I create something that makes you look at the world in a certain way, can make you laugh, because I'm a real believer that if you can make someone laugh, you can make someone listen. And whether that's now making a movie or making a chicken restaurant, I think that there's a way to have a sense of humor about what you do that will make people much more amenable to the conversation.
Yeah, it's the message, but the message is also hidden in the entertainment, so people will actually watch it.
They'll actually eat it. I'll actually be able to give you that spinach, and it'll taste like cotton candy.
Yeah, I'm curious about how your diets changed before the first film, after the first film, and now after you've started the fast food chain.
Well, I'm 48, so I eat much healthier now than I did when I was 28. And I think you just pay a lot more attention. I've got kids too, so also now once you have kids, you actually want to set a better example. Like I can't just sit around and eat Ho-Hos all day or little chocolate donuts like I did back when I was in college. And you want to make food important. So I come home and it's important for me to sit down and have a dinner as a family, as much as I can. Sometimes I can't, but 90% of the time I try and make that important so that they see it's important. And for me, especially now that I'm opening a chicken restaurant, I think it's very important to pay attention to what you eat. And we tell you that when you walk in Holy Chicken, or actually more when you leave Holy Chicken, there's a sign on the door that says, "Better not see you soon," because we tell you, this food is just as bad as any other fast food. You shouldn't eat this often. You should eat it once a month maybe, but it's so good you're probably going to come back.
Yeah, something in the film that really caught me as a marketing and branding person for many years. I went to school for marketing. Is when you met with all the marketing and branding agencies and they really highlighted bringing out your personality and your brand into defining the fast food chain. Can you explain
mindful, playful.
And what you learned about yourself that you might not even realize during that creative process?
So I did this amazing branding exercise with a company out of Pittsburgh. And what they do is they do this long interview with you. They sit down and ask all these questions and they break down kind of what your point of view as a brand. And they do this with companies. They've never really done it with a person. They sat down with me and defined my brand as a person as mindful and playful, which I thought that was the best description of it. Because it's exactly what I want my work to be. It's exactly the way I like it to kind of come across to people, where it's fun, but it'll trigger some things in your head a little bit. And and it's one of those things that once that happened in that film, it became very easy for me to describe what we make, and what I like to make. So I think moving forward, I'd love to continue to be able to make stuff like that, TV shows like that, movies like that, stories like that, because I just think they resonate. You can start a conversation much simpler by doing that without me telling you what to think and I'm browbeating you into submission with my ideas. I think the minute you start yelling at somebody and kind of lecturing them, the wall goes down. And I think the more fun it is, the more people are going to be a part of it. And I think that's what people love about Holy Chicken is they walk into the restaurant and from the minute you walk in, it's this weird, fun conversation that suddenly you're allowed to have. Suddenly I'm allowed to eat this food and talk about how shitty it is at the same time. I'm allowed to talk about how terrible the industry is while kind of supporting this side of the industry. I think there's something really, I find there's something really dynamic about it that I think is awesome.
Yeah, and one of the things that caught my eye too was labeling. I mean, I go into these supermarkets and it's like
you have no idea.
Free range and organic, and who knows what to believe. And especially in this world, we live in the world of fake news, right? So how do people know what to trust in the food industry and just overall, what do you recommend to them?
I think that's the hard part is you don't know who to trust, and we live in a time where there's so much coming at us out all the time, and I think we want to believe that there's somebody who has our best interest in mind. We want to believe that there's a regulatory agency that has our best interest in mind, or that this company is really out to help us. And I think what you start to see is that that's not true. A company's sole purpose is to make as much money as possible. The government that you think should be looking out for you continues to put people in those positions of power and influence in the regulatory boards who come from those corporations, so they get hired or kind of placed into those positions, change the regulations while they're there, go back out to those corporations and start making millions of dollars again. They get rewarded for kind of the work they've done. So
sums up the government.
It sums up the government. Sums up the government. So then, who does that? And we think that somebody else will take care of that. Somebody else will fix it. And the fact is, you and I are that somebody else. We're that somebody else. And if we don't do it, it's not going to get done. And so part of what I try to instill in folks, and hopefully comes out of the work that I do, is that collectively we can make a much bigger difference than kind of one person, fighting a windmill alone.
Yeah, and I think the other thing to take from the documentary is you just started in a new industry because you're in the media entertainment world, and now you're in the food industry, which was a creative way of doing the documentary, but you're also figuring out how to be a businessman in this new industry. So what did you learn about being a businessman in this industry and how hard it is? And what lessons did you learn so that you were able to create a good final product?
It's all humility. It's like you have to come in, you're not better than anybody, you're not smarter than anybody, none of it. It's like literally it's a level playing field, which is the way that I run my films and run the work that I do. It's like everybody's idea is as good as anybody else's. It doesn't matter who you are. If you got an idea to make something better, you got a joke that's going to make something funnier, you got something that's going to make a scene end in a better way, great, I want to hear it. Everybody gets to have a voice. And especially now I'm going into this new world of restaurants, and I am the dumbest person in the room when it comes to this, because I make movies. What do I know about this? So it's surrounding yourself with people who are infinitely smarter than you, who are better at their job in every way than you'll ever be in this space. And it kind of goes back to the filmmaking. Like, how do you surround yourself with people who are great at this? And that's what I'm just trying to do. So I'm trying to find the best people who come from a management standpoint, who come from chicken growing, who know how to like franchise and find the right partners. I mean, it's crazy. Like, it's crazy, but it's fun. I mean, it's so different than anything I've ever done. And just where we are right now, like, we're about to open the pop-up tonight in New York City. And just this race, I mean, we didn't even have the space that we're in until last Sunday. So we've basically transformed an entire restaurant for opening in 8 days, and kind of sourced our food and, you know, created all the marketing that's going to go around it. It's been nuts how fast it's happened, but it's exciting.
Yeah, and the other thing that I think a lot of people will have like a kind of an emotional reaction to in the film is the chicken farmers and how
100%.
horrible they're treated.
Yeah.
How did you like connect with them, empathize with them, and want to do right by them?
Well, being a hillbilly from West Virginia, I think the Buttrams and I just kind of, we got along really quickly. Like, we're Mishpucha. We're like these great country boys who, from minute one, just really saw the world eye to eye.
So you felt like they were prisoners.
They are prisoners. Like, these farmers are stuck in these contracts. They're stuck in these deals that they can't get out of. The minute you speak out about them, then you'll get fired from the company, and nobody else will hire you, so you could be saddled with just millions of dollars in debt and no way to pay it. So yeah, your heart goes out to these guys. And so for me, it's like I've felt very, not only indebted to them for kind of what they gave to me, but it's a purpose of I need to help them as much as I can. And so Jonathan and Zach, they're here in New York while we're opening the film. They're down at Holy Chicken as we speak. And, you know, my whole goal is to, you know, get these guys out of corporate chicken, out of corporate chicken completely. And let's try and figure out a way to create a whole new independent model of raising chickens that doesn't live in that world, doesn't live under that umbrella. And I think there's a way to do that.
In my head, during the documentary and afterwards, I was thinking, did he come up with the idea of starting the fast food chain first and then leverage the documentary to sell it?
Yeah.
Or was it a cool idea for the documentary and now it's a platform to sell it? Which
it was the movie idea came first, and so we had the idea of let's make a film about me opening a restaurant. And it wasn't until, and I tell you, it wasn't even until we opened and we saw the reaction from the people. And then on the fourth day, when a franchise company actually called us and said, we want to open these, we want to help you open these all over the country, that I was like, that's insane. And that's when the light goes on. You're like, wow, there's a bigger idea here. There's a bigger conversation. There's a bigger opportunity. And, you know, I'm a real believer, that there are companies that can do good and do well. Warby Parker, Tom Shoes. Like, there are companies that can be profitable. Where the CEO isn't making $80 million, that you're actually pushing some of that money back down to the people who work there, the people who are now making a living wage, the people who are creating the product, you know, they're growing the product, are actually making money and then some. So there's a business here. There's a business here that could change the way we look at fast food, fast casual food, and we'll see what happens. I don't know.
And what's your best piece of career advice?
My best piece of career advice it comes from just experiences I've had growing up and the example that my father set for me. And I think the greatest piece of advice I could give to people is embrace failing. Failing is the greatest thing you could ever do. And if you're going to work in the film business, you're going to fail. If you work in the movie business, entertainment business, food business, any business, you need to accept the fact that most of what you try isn't going to hit. Most of what you sell isn't going to work. Most of what you make isn't going to accomplish what you initially set out to do. But if you come into it saying, I'm going to make this, and out of it, I'm hoping for X, or this is going to happen, and it isn't like, I'm just going to make this and win an Oscar, or I'm going to create this $1 billion food company. You know, it's like, so long as I think you have steps in mind of what you hope to accomplish, then I don't think there's such thing as failure. I think everything out of it, when you take a step back, will be a learning tool, a stepping stone that gets you to the next bigger thing. And when I was a kid growing up, my father, who was a serial entrepreneur, I would see my father fail constantly at business. He'd create a business and it would do great and he'd sell it off. He'd create another one that would completely shit the bed and he'd just shut it down. Or he'd create one and just kind of limp along for a while and then he'd just close it. But I never saw my father quit. That's the other thing, is you never quit. You keep grinding, you keep going, and you use those tools. And so I think that the greatest lesson I ever got from my father was never seeing him give up. And always having a smile on his face. That's the thing. So embrace failing, never give up, and be happy about it.
Excellent message. Thank you so much again, Morgan.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.